2 months ago, I, 45 female, woke up to a zero balance in my bank account. Now, 2 months on, I still can't convince myself it's not my husband's fault or that forgiveness is possible. This was a shared bank account my husband and I had opened, and it's where he receives his paychecks and our rent, groceries, gas, credit card payments, etc. come out of this account. We're not rich. I make $14 an hour working 28 hours a week, and he makes $18 an hour full-time. We have 2 kids, but only our younger daughter, pre-tween, is his biologically. My older daughter, tween's father, is my ex. We broke up due to his constant cheating, never remarried. This all started because my husband got a real estate license in hopes of making extra money, despite no real business until summer. He became concerned about how real estate agents have to be trusted with sensitive information and was afraid it would work against him if he were being sued by creditors. I admit that to soften the standard of living disparity between my ex and me, we took out more credit cards than we should have, for my daughter's sake. We got collection calls and I told him to tell them to get a life. I also suggested bankruptcy, but he said that they would all come to collect the money anyway. One creditor was particularly aggressive and found us after we moved, and my husband said his public license meant they'd always find him. He called them and negotiated it down to $700, which we could take the hit for. My husband said he'd take care of it, and they agreed to write it off and then paid with an e-check. For like a few days, everything seemed all right. Then I wake up to find out they drained the entire account, $4,000. I broke down crying. My husband came in and instead of doing anything, he just clutched his chest, motioned helplessly, and made some gasp. He went mute and just sat there while I was there, thinking about how we didn't even have enough credit to get our groceries for the week, and that I'd have to use my child support from my ex to feed my kids and my husband. I grabbed our kids and drove to my ex's house because I had nowhere else to go. Despite being a cheater, he didn't want his daughter to starve or to watch her sister starve, so he let us stay there. My husband tried calling me. He acted possessed when I went to get more stuff. I heard him screaming at the top of his lungs that they were breaking up families. He left reviews saying this company took away everything he had and ruined his family. My ex said everybody knows debt collectors would do this, and my husband should have listened to me. It's been 2 months and I'm finding my own place. My husband no longer does anything with his RE license and barely kept his job because he'd be distracted. Now, all our interactions, he's filled with resentment, and yesterday we got in a blowout fight where he said if I ignored the collectors, none of this would have happened, and I'm ready to move past it. Am I the idiot? So the real story is that you racked up a bunch of credit cards you couldn't pay for so that your oldest daughter wouldn't like living at your ex's house more than yours. You ran up credit card debt because you were having a lifestyle competition. You lack marketability skills, don't work full-time, and are financially illiterate. You have no emergency food supplies to get by for a week or two, so you moved in with a cheating ex-lover and abandoned your husband. Lady, you ran up all the debt. You tried to dodge it and told your husband to dodge it. Your debt was negatively impacting your husband's career, yet you seem to believe he's the idiot in your story. You are the idiot 100%. Debt doesn't just vanish. Do you really think you can just move to a new address and all of your credit card debt goes away because you no longer see the bills? It's not just free money. It's wild that you're blaming your husband for trying to pay off your debts as the cause for this. Your husband was trying to do the right thing and improve your sorry life. He deserves better than you. Yep, I couldn't believe the whole "I told him to get a life" bit. I heard the record scratch sound in my head and I reread that sentence 5 times. I was like, how is an actually functioning adult this stupid? Does she really think that she can just tell credit card companies they're not going to pay and that's it? And the only way they can force you to pay is if you stay on the phone with them? How did she type all of this out without dying of embarrassment? You'd be surprised how many people treat debt like this. I deal with them every day. OP's 45 and makes $14 an hour with a net worth of $4,000. She racks up the debt. All because she wouldn't accept her daughter would live a little less rich than at her dad's house. Not to mention, she went straight to her ex's house. She's a moron and a thief. Running up credit card debt with no intention of repaying it is theft. It may be impossible to prove, but it's still theft. You need a reality check, girl. This is real life. They want their money. Your husband did the right thing. You did not. My daughter is a pre-tween. I drove her to school on Monday morning, dropped her off, and then took my son to his classroom, pre-K, separate building. When I returned to my car, my daughter stood by it crying. I was running late for work, so I took her to my mom's. I debated calling the school but assumed they'd call me and decided not to be any later to work. They didn't call me. My daughter was okay. She tripped in class and broke her bottle. She cried and came to find me but forgot where her brother's class was, so she waited by the car. I was furious when I got to pick up and no one had said anything. I decided to walk to my daughter's class to ask what had happened in the morning. When the teacher saw me, she bolted back inside and disappeared. I decided to head to the main office instead. As soon as I got there, the teacher rushed into an explanation of not realizing my daughter was supposed to be in today. Basic guilty crap. I let her ramble and then explained where she was. The principal was called, who essentially told me it was incredibly dangerous for me not to call her in and to let her staff worry. I think it's unprofessional for them not to call home if a child just disappears. I handed her off to a staff member so at least one person knew she was there. Anything could have happened to her. She's little and was walking out in front of cars. They've decided we need to have a meeting. I agree. Neither kid has been to school today. I'm probably going to switch their school. I spoke to my brother, a teacher, who said I was in the wrong. Teachers make mistakes. The staff member probably saw me with her and that's why she didn't tell anyone. I don't feel like I was, but I can see his point of view. Am I the idiot? Edit, I walked my daughter to the door, said hi to the class assistant, and transferred my daughter's hand into hers. My daughter wasn't marked absent for the whole day. Honestly, you are the idiot. When I returned to my car, my daughter stood by it crying. I was running late for work, so I just took her to my mom's. I honestly don't get why you'd let her have the day off over that. I don't know why you couldn't just walk her back to class and console her instead of letting her have the entire day off over that. I don't get that. Being 2 minutes later to get her back in class shouldn't be that big of a deal. Your daughter was unattended briefly at the beginning of school. Besides that, she was completely safe. You have a right to be concerned about that brief moment and even speak to the school about it, but everything else after that is just you being dishonest. Not the idiot. Your child should have never been able to leave the classroom, let alone the building. Once you drop your kid off at school, there is a responsibility on the faculty and staff to keep your child safe. Furthermore, it's the school's job to call you if your child isn't present and you haven't called for exactly this reason. The rest of these folk haven't been in a school in a long time. That being said, you definitely could have called, but this is their colossal mess-up. What has me suspicious is the teacher's reaction when she saw you. So what really happened on their end? Something went down, likely showing flaws in their processes if they considered them carefully and they're not telling you. Not the idiot. Switch schools. This school isn't prioritizing your children's safety and they're covering up issues instead of communicating them. I'm on maternity leave as I just had our baby a few weeks ago. Maybe this is why my tolerance is 100% gone. Since my car's head gasket blew, my fiancé had to pick up groceries for dinner after work. But he works right directly beside the grocery store, so it's not out of his way and would literally take at most 10 minutes to grab groceries. We live 15 minutes from both his work and the grocery store. But as of maybe a week and a half ago, he stopped going to the grocery store after work and just came home and would leave a couple of hours later to go back to the grocery store, complaining the whole time about not wanting to drive. I'm so tired of doing everything and not having time to myself to relax. By the time I've finally convinced him to leave to go to pick up stuff for dinner, it's almost 7 p.m. every single time. Never fails. And it could have all been avoided if he'd just taken the time to walk 5 feet to the grocery store before coming home every day. Well, last night he got home at 4:30. I specifically asked him earlier in the day to grab groceries before coming home, but he didn't because he just wanted to come home. He played with the baby for maybe an hour before I finally asked him to get dinner because I was hungry for once. I've barely been able to eat since having the baby because food is gross to me right now. He said he would in a bit and sat on the couch with a beer. 45 minutes later, he got himself a bowl of cereal and sat back on the couch. So I grabbed the baby and his keys and just left to go grocery shopping myself, and I took longer because I did a big shop, so I don't have to depend on him anymore. Maybe 30 minutes later, he called and asked where I was and why I took his truck, knowing he didn't feel it was safe for me to drive. I said, I was done waiting for you, I was hungry, you didn't care, so I did it myself. If you didn't want this happening, then you should have gone to the store before coming home. He says I'm an idiot for taking off with the baby without saying anything to him, and that I should have just waited until he was ready to leave. Edit, just to clarify, he said the power steering was going and that's why he didn't want me driving it, but the power steering was 100% fine. It drove normally with zero issues. I've driven his vehicle plenty in the past, but ever since I had the baby, he doesn't want me doing anything or going anywhere. This is the first time I've gotten out of the house other than our baby's doctor's appointments in 5 weeks. The power steering was an excuse at best. He won't buy groceries that last more than a day. The truck is in my name, so it's not considered theft. All my family and friends are in Maine. He moved me out to the middle of nowhere in Arizona last year because he was depressed and needed a change. I don't know anyone here. There's not even Uber or Lyft in this area. Not the idiot. I'm sorry, but it sounds like he's keeping you a prisoner in your own home. Not out for 5 weeks. That's ridiculous. I tell him to watch the baby when he gets home and go without him. He needs to get over whatever insecurities he has about you living your life with a baby. Your fiancé is awful. It sounds like he just wanted to trap you into having a kid. Agree, this sounds like a power play, especially as there's nothing wrong with the car. I would leave the baby with him next time, or better still, leave him altogether. To get food for just himself? What an idiot. Why did you have a baby with this selfish person? I suggest you look at alternative arrangements that don't make you, and now your child, dependent on him. This is giving me the heebie-jeebies for you. Something here needs to change. Girl, think it's time to move back to your family. He moved you across the country, isolated you from everyone and everything, and now controls your every move. This is not okay. Do not marry this guy. Get a hold of your family and see if anyone will help you get back home safely. These situations tend to escalate into violence. Even if they don't, that's no way to live. I, female 28, am Latina and my husband 29 is white. We met in college and got married 2 years ago. His parents have always had issues with our relationship, making indirectly offensive comments about me. They never accepted me as part of the family and treated me like a stranger. A year into the marriage, the situation reached a point where I asked my husband to choose between me and his parents. He chose to stay with me and we cut off contact with them. Despite my husband defending me from indirect comments, I couldn't handle their disrespect. I felt hurt every time I had to interact with them. I'm in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy with our first child, and somehow my husband's parents found out. They started calling and texting my husband, I don't know how they got his number, apologizing and expressing a desire to meet their grandchild when it's born. They claim to have changed and we shouldn't deny them that. I don't believe them and I don't want them to have any contact with my child. I don't trust them and I'm afraid they might do something to harm us. I also don't want my child to grow up hearing the same horrible things they said to me. I think they don't deserve to be a part of my child's life after everything they've done. My husband is torn. He says he understands my side but also misses his parents and wants to give them a chance. He thinks they're our child's grandparents and might have genuinely changed. He wants to reconcile with them and wants me to do the same. I refuse to do that and tell him he can do as he wishes, but I won't let them see our baby when it's born. I say this is my final decision and he has to respect it. He was upset with me, but he agreed and we haven't discussed it further. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Have they tried to make amends to you for the way they treated you? If not, then they haven't changed because that's exactly what a person who has changed would do. Apologize for being an idiot. Point that out to your husband and remind him that his child is the race they find appropriate to attack. Does he really think his child should be exposed to that? Don't let your kid around them, but if your husband misses them, there's no reason he can't see them on his own, not at your home. Both you and your child deserve to be safe in your own home, and inviting idiots over is the opposite of safe. Please don't. My grandma was a loving woman who was bigoted. She loved me but never forgot I was coloured. She told me never to go out in the sun, I would get too dark, and told everyone I was Italian, not Puerto Rican, and when I misbehaved, she said I was bad, just like my dad. Do not let these people near your child. They may love the pieces they see of their son, but they won't forget what they don't like about you. It will mess your kid up. I'm 18 and when I was around 10, my mom cheated on my father and got pregnant. This resulted in my half-sister Kathy. Soon after, my parents cut my grandparents out of our life. My parents stayed together. I turned 18 3 months ago and my grandparents reached out. They informed me over lunch that when Kathy was born, they made it clear they didn't see her as a grandkid and that she was the product of my mom cheating on her son. They refused to make a college fund for her, and my parents cut them out due to it. They informed me that I had a college fund from them, and I decided to take it. I came home and kept it to myself. I've been reconnecting with them, and it came to a head today. My parents learned who I was hanging out with. This resulted in an argument for taking the money when they shunned Kathy. I told them they were right not to consider her a grandkid and to screw them for cutting them out of my life. They haven't talked to me since, and I'm doubting myself. Edit: Kathy's bio-dad has partial custody. My dad never adopted her. Kathy is not relative to the grandparents at all. They informed me that they were pushing for him to divorce her after the whole thing came out. Not the idiot. It's embarrassing that your parents expected them to make a college fund for her when they didn't have to do it at all for either of you. Take the money. In this economy, you're going to need that college fund. You're also an adult and you can create your relationship with your grandparents if you want. Your parents are just going to have to suck it up. Your parents should accept that your dad's parents have no obligations to the child your mom had with another guy. It's not your fault your mom cheated, and it's not your responsibility to make your grandparents accept your half-sister. Even if your dad forgave her, that doesn't mean everyone needs to, and everyone needs to treat her like she's your dad's. They even robbed you of your grandparents just because they felt entitled to grandparents' money. They estranged you from your family when your sister has 3 parents. You shouldn't suffer because your mom didn't get a college fund from people who aren't nearly this child's family. Screw them. Take the college money and go off to college.